Hello everybody, how are you today? I hope you are fine and always fine. Okay, first, let me introduce myself. My name is Gayatri Novyoga Dismanasari, and then me with my friend Dwi Kurniawati. We will present our fourth chapter in Systemic Functional Grammar course. It is how speakers interact with language, exploring interpersonal meanings. Okay, everyone, if we talk about how speakers interact with language, we can find two ways people or speakers can interact with language. There are stratification and realization. That's why in this discussion, we will focus to discuss about stratification and realization. If you got the point, let's go into the next slide. Okay, here is the name of presenter, me and my friends, Dwi Kurniawati and Gayatri Novyogadis Manasari. First, we will discuss about the definition of stratification. What is stratification? Stratification is the level of how interconnected language are formed in society. We get the theory from Halliday and Matheson, 2014. They argue that human attempts at constructing the complexity of our material experience into meaning and then exchanging that meaning with other human beings in a socio-cultural context requires the formulation of a theory of experience, or as we might otherwise refer to a grammar. Stratification divided into four: first, context of culture; second, semantics; third, lexicogrammar; and then fourth, phonology. And now we are going to discuss it one by one. Let me start from context of culture. Context of culture divided into two: high context of culture and then low context of culture. As you know, learning a foreign language is not easy. Not only do you need to learn a whole new set of sounds, vocabulary, and grammar, but you also need to understand the context in which communication takes place. The context is basically the background or framework surrounding the act of communications. In this sense, culture, as much as grammar and vocabulary, has a powerful effect of communication. The famous anthropologist Edward T. Hall studied the effect of context and culture on communication, and he identified two basic types of cultures, which are high context and low context culture. High context cultures are those that tend to emphasize interpersonal relationships. They value group harmony, and their communication tends to be ruled more by intuition and feelings than by logic. Here, in high context cultures, words are not as important as context, which might include a speaker's facial expressions, tone of voice, body language, and even age and status. High context communications tends to be more indirect and formal. Hall described many Asian, Middle Eastern, South American, and African cultures as high context cultures. The first one is low context culture. On the other hand, tend to emphasize the individual. They value logic, fact, and being direct. Decisions are often based on fact and information, rather than feeling and intuitions. Here, in low context culture, words and legal documents become more important than relationship during communication. Hall labeled much of Western Europe and North America as low context culture. This includes most English-speaking cultures as well. Now, what is the differences between low and high context communication? The difference between low and high context communication can perhaps be illustrated in the following example. Let's say you meet someone for the very first time. You don't know nothing about each other. So you have to spend many hours talking and asking questions in order to get to know each other. That's pretty low context communication. But let's say you've been married for 30 years. You don't even need to talk in order to communicate. One look from across the room and you know exactly what your wife or husband is thinking. And nobody else can understand. That's high context communication. Second is semantics. Semantics is the study of meaning in language. It can be applied to entire texts or to single words. For example, destination and last stop technically mean the same thing, but students of semantics analyze their subtle shades of meaning. Now we are going to the lexicogrammar. Lexicogrammar, also called lexical grammar, is a term used in systemic functional linguistics to emphasize the interdependence of vocabulary, lexis, and syntax grammar. Think of lexicogrammar not as simply as combination of two fields of study but as a spectrum that contains aspects of lexical studies and aspects of grammatical studies. Here, according to systemic functional theory, lexical grammar is the first fit into a metafunctional spectrum, extended in delicacy for grammar to lexis, and order into a series of rank units. Halliday, 2013. Simply put, lexicogrammar is the grammar of the lexicon. The last one is phonology. Phonology is defined as the study of sound patterns and their meanings, both within and across languages. An example of phonology is the study of different sounds and the way they come together to form speech and words, such as the comparison of the sounds of the two P sounds in pop up. An example of phonology is the study of the movements the body goes through in order to create sounds, such as the pronunciation of letter T in bat, where the vocal cords stop vibrating causing the T sounds to be a result of the placement of the tongue behind the teeth and the flow of air. Here is the simple conclusions, the simple definition of each part of stratification. Context of culture. Language form is influenced by the environment. Semantic agreement of the formation of language. Lexicogrammar, lexis word, and grammar structure, so structure of word. And phonology, the sound of spoken words.
The next is realization. Realization is the relationship between stage 1 and the other stages in the process of language formation. The last is conclusion. Language is formed through several levels called stratification. This level consists of context, semantics, lexicogrammar, and phonology, while realization is the relationship between stage 1 and the other stages in the process of language formation.
Okay, everyone, I think that's all our presentation, and thank you so much for your attention. Goodbye.